The deep space listening station floated in silent darkness, far from the busy routes of human travel. It was a lonely place, the kind of outpost where time felt slower and every small noise sounded louder than it should. Most people who worked there came only for a short assignment, then left as soon as they could. The station was known for its quiet days, long nights, and the endless hum of machines that never stopped running. That calm was exactly why the young technician on duty almost missed the first odd signal. It came late in the shift, when the screens usually showed nothing but background noise from stars and distant dust clouds. The technician was sipping a warm drink, half listening, half thinking about going home soon, when one display flickered in a way he had never seen before. A single line of data flashed, then vanished. At first, he assumed it was a glitch. Machines in deep space acted strangely sometimes, but then the line appeared again, this time longer. It was soft, faint, like someone whispering from across a vast distance. He leaned closer and replayed the audio translation. What he heard made him stop breathing for a moment. It wasn't random noise. It wasn't natural. It had a beat, a timing, like footsteps, a pattern that felt too deliberate to be an accident. He replayed it again, and again. Each time, the feeling inside him grew heavier. He knew he had to report it, but he also knew how others would react. Signals came and went all the time. People in charge usually brushed them off, unless they came with undeniable threat markers. This one had no warning code, no signature from a known species. It was just strange. Strange enough to bother him. Still, he gathered the data and sent it through the internal channel. The message bounced back almost instantly, marked with a short reply, telling him to forward it to the primary defense network. He did. After that, he could do nothing but wait. On Earth, alarms didn't sound and no emergency lights flashed. The data was reviewed by a tired analyst who had seen 100 false alarms in the past month. That analyst played the sound once, shrugged, and logged it without any urgent tags. After all, who would even think of attacking Earth? Every known species in the galaxy understood one thing clearly. Humans were unpredictable, stubborn, and terrifying when pushed into a corner. They didn't always follow rules, but they always defended their home. So the analyst wrote a note that the signal likely came from distant objects colliding, or maybe an echo from an old satellite drifting far beyond its route. The report was stored and forgotten within minutes, but the technician on the station couldn't forget it. When his shift ended, he stayed behind, staring at the screen. Something in his chest kept warning him that this was not normal. He didn't have proof. He only had instinct, and instinct was not a part of the official decision chain. But instinct was something humans had trusted since the beginning of their own history. As the hours passed, the signal came again. This time longer. This time clearer. The rhythm grew sharper, like thousands of metal steps hitting ground in perfect unison. A chill ran through him. It sounded like a march. He ran another scan. More details appeared. The signal was traveling at a speed too constant to be natural. It wasn't drifting with space currents. It was directed, controlled. Someone out there was broadcasting something intentionally and heading toward. Point in space that made his stomach twist. The solar system. He contacted the defense network again, this time insisting that someone look deeper. A new team reviewed the data. They didn't laugh, but they didn't panic either. For them, the universe was full of surprises, but surprises rarely meant danger. Still, they marked the report as unusual and forwarded it to higher levels. Even in those higher rooms, where decisions affected entire planets, the mood stayed calm. No species had ever dared attack Earth in recorded history. Alliances, treaties, and fear kept things balanced. Humans were not the biggest power or the most advanced, But they had a reputation no one wanted to test. But far away from Earth, beyond familiar routes, rumors were already spreading among traders and explorers. They spoke quietly in bars and docks, never too loudly, because they didn't want to attract attention. Some claimed that a distant alliance, one rarely spoken about, had been studying Earth, studying its weaknesses, studying its strange nature. They believed humans were a danger to future control and influence. They believed something irrational. They believed Earth could be defeated. Those rumors never reached official ears in time. They drifted between small stations, whispered by people who had seen things but didn't want trouble. No one connected them to the signal. Back on the deep space station, the technician was wide awake, even though he should have been resting. Every part of him felt restless. The signal was growing stronger, clearer, and too organized to ignore. He pulled up all the data and laid it across multiple screens. Patterns emerged. Repeated pulses. Timed bursts. Each one measured exactly the same length. The precision scared him more than anything else. Whoever was sending this was not wandering. They were mobilizing. He wrote his own personal report. Not the dry technical description required by the station, but a simple message from one human to another. He wrote that he felt something was wrong, that this didn't match anything they had seen before. He wrote that the rhythm felt like an army preparing to move. He ended with one line, "They are coming." He didn't expect anyone to read it immediately, but he sent it anyway, hoping someone with authority would pay attention before it was too late. Hours later, his message reached another desk on Earth. The reader went through it slowly, frowning. There was no panic, but something about the technician's instinct made the reader hesitate. After a long moment, they flagged the report for deeper analysis. Not because of proof, but because humans understood the value of a gut feeling. Still, no alarm sounded. No global alerts were issued. Life on Earth continued normally. People worked, ate meals, planned for the next day. They looked at the peaceful sky with no idea of the gathering storm. But the galaxy knew. The galaxy watched closely. And in hidden corners, different species whispered to each other, wondering if the alliance rumored to be moving toward Earth had truly made such a reckless decision. Some feared for Earth. Others feared for the attackers. The technician looked outside the station window, staring into endless black space. Something out there was moving, something he couldn't see, but could feel in every recorded signal. He didn't know what form the threat would take. He didn't know who was behind it. But he knew one thing with complete certainty. Whatever was coming, believed it could win. Whatever was coming believed Earth was vulnerable. He whispered to the empty room, more to himself than anyone else, "This is a mistake. Whoever they are, this is a mistake." Deep in his chest, he hoped he was wrong. But he already knew the truth. And far across the dark, massive shapes silently advanced, leaving no trace but the rhythmic signals that kept growing stronger and closer. The day it happened began like any other day. People on Earth woke up, checked their phones, made breakfast, argued about small things, and rushed to work. Nothing felt unusual. Nothing in the sky hinted at what was coming. Even the weather was calm in most places. Across the world, millions of lives moved forward without knowing the next few hours would be remembered forever. High above Earth, the space stations operated normally. Crew members carried out routine checks, cleaned panels, and monitored small repairs. The moon bases were handling shipments of materials, talking to cargo pilots, and preparing for their usual schedules. Everything felt ordinary. If someone had listened closely, they might have noticed a faint shift in the background signals, but no one on the bases had the kind of equipment needed to decode them. Only the listening station far out in the void knew what was approaching. When it finally happened, it came with no warning lights, no alarms, no build-up, One moment the sky was clear. The next, space tore open, as if a giant invisible hand had ripped a crack into existence. People on the night side of Earth saw it first. A bright flash streaked across the sky like a second sunrise. Some recorded it on their phones, thinking it was a meteor or some kind of natural event. But meteors did not slow down. Meteors did not change direction. Meteors did not cast huge, sharp-edged shadows onto the clouds. Within seconds, every sensor around the moon began blaring. Ships that should not exist suddenly appeared as enormous shapes, emerging from hyperspace with cold precision. Their surfaces glowed with unnatural colors, reflecting no sunlight, absorbing all light around them like giant silent predators. They did not drift. They marched forward in perfect formation. The first confirmed count showed more than 100 massive warships. Each one was bigger than the largest human-built space carrier. They were shaped like long blades, as if their creators believed space battles were something to slice through rather than hide in. They radiated energy that human machines struggled to identify. On the moon bases, people froze. Some stared at the screens without blinking. Some dropped their tools. A few whispered prayers or curses under their breath without even realizing they were doing it. No drills had ever prepared them for this. They all knew what this meant. Someone was invading. Emergency. Messages shot toward Earth so fast that the networks nearly overloaded. Defense agencies, governments, and every large space facility received the same transmission. Sent in a single desperate burst. Unknown fleet in lunar orbit, overwhelming size. Taking positions, Dot, and then, seconds later, the invaders broadcast the first message, Dot. No face appeared on the screen. No voice. Only a flat, cold signal translated into simple words. Surrender. That was all they said. A single command. As if they believed that was enough. Nobody knew how to reply. For the first few moments, the world was silent. People stared at the message in disbelief, not fear. Surrender? Earth had fought wars, disasters, crises, and challenges for thousands of years. Humanity had survived things entire species would have collapsed under. The idea that some unknown invaders could appear and expect Earth to bow without resistance felt absurd. Inside command rooms across different nations, leaders and officers exchanged looks that were almost confused. Not panicked, confused. This was not how anyone expected a galactic threat to arrive. Then the shaking began. A blast wave rolled across space as the alien ships spread into attack formation. They locked weapons, their energy signatures spiking in a way that made every sensor scream warnings. They were not waiting for an answer. They were preparing to strike. Earth's defense protocols activated instantly. Satellites moved into position. Shields powered up on orbital platforms. Underground bunkers lit up with staff rushing to stations. Old files were opened, files marked for emergencies. No one had ever imagined would happen. On one of the Earth-based command floors, someone muttered under their breath that the invaders clearly had no idea who they were dealing with. Humanity was not perfect. Humanity argued, disagreed, and sometimes failed. But humanity protected its home with everything it had, and this was home. Across civilian networks, the news spread like wildfire. People stopped working. Cars pulled over on roads. Families gathered around screens. Kids watched with wide eyes. Some people cried. Some could not speak. But most felt the same strange mixture of fear and disbelief. How could these unknown invaders think this was a smart idea? Others in the galaxy were watching too. Dozens of neutral species had receivers that tapped into Earth's open communication channels. They saw the invading fleet. They saw the message demanding surrender. And they reacted with the same stunned disbelief humanity felt. Many of them whispered the same thought. Why would anyone attack Earth? It was not that humans were the strongest. They were not. Their ships were not the largest. Their weapons, while dangerous, were not unmatched. But humans were unpredictable. Humans adapted faster than almost any species. Humans thought of solutions no one else would consider. Humans were willing to push limits that others believed impossible. The galaxy had seen humans in disaster zones. Humans rebuilding destroyed colonies. Humans defending smaller species even without reward. Humans fighting until the very last moment in any crisis. They had earned a reputation. Do not push humans too far. Yet the invaders had made the mistake of ignoring that reputation. Back in orbit, the human fleet began to move. Earth ships, though smaller, positioned themselves between the alien armada and the planet. Pilots strapped into their seats with trembling breath but steady hands. They had trained for emergencies, but none had expected something like this. Still, none of them backed down. The alien fleet released another broadcast. This time the meaning was clearer. Comply or be crushed. Several officers exchanged glances. It was almost unreal. The invaders still believed Earth might surrender. Meanwhile, at the Deep Space Listening Station, the technician who first heard the signal stared at the unfolding chaos with a heavy heart. He felt a strange mix of fear and validation. Everything he had warned about was happening. He wished he had been wrong. He wished those signals had been nothing but harmless noise. But now it was too late. He watched the enemy ships move like a giant wall sliding toward the moon. Their engines pulsed with silent aggression. Their formation never broke, not even for a second. They moved with the confidence of conquerors who believed their victory was already guaranteed, but they didn't understand humanity. On Earth, every military group coordinated without hesitation. Fighter squadrons aligned on runways. Defense grids charged. Suborbital cannons locked onto targets. Even people in cities prepared shelters and evacuation routes. But there was no chaos. No screaming. No widespread panic. The reaction was focused, sharp, and unified. The world had been through enough together to know how to stand as one. Still, the invaders kept advancing. They fired the first warning shots, thin beams of energy that cut through empty space with terrifying speed. They hit nothing because they were meant to intimidate, not destroy. But those beams were enough. Human command rooms erupted with urgency. Orders flew across channels. Every human ship tightened formation. Every ground station readied its systems. Everyone braced for something bigger above the moon. The alien fleet shifted like a living metal, beast preparing to strike. The galaxy watched with silent anticipation, and the Earth held its breath. What happened next would be remembered for centuries. But in that moment, before the first true shot was fired, there was only stillness. An enormous, heavy stillness that seemed to stretch across the entire solar system. The invaders believed they had cornered a weak world, but the truth, a truth they were about to learn the hard way, was that Earth had never been weak, and attacking it was the greatest mistake they had ever made. For a long moment, nothing happened. The alien fleet hung above the moon like a giant steel curtain, blocking the stars. Thousands of people on Earth stared at their screens, waiting for the first explosion, waiting for the first scream, waiting for the world to shake. But nothing came. The enemy ships remained still, not firing, not retreating, simply hovering in cold silence. Some thought maybe the invaders were hesitating. Others thought they were studying the defenses. But deep inside every human watching, a quiet tension kept growing. The stillness felt wrong. It felt like the pause before a storm finally breaks. Inside the main command rooms around the world, teams rushed through data streams, trying to understand every movement of the enemy fleet. Human officers leaned forward, eyes narrowed, studying the alien formation. Their ships were positioned with unnatural precision. No gaps, no weakness. Every ship mirrored the next, like they were part of a single machine. Human commanders whispered to each other that such formation discipline was rare. Even advanced species struggled to maintain that kind of unity. Whoever these invaders were, they were not amateurs. They were trained. They were confident. And they were prepared for a fight. Yet Earth's fleet made no moves. They stayed still, shields up, weapons charged, but not fired. To the outside viewer, it might have looked like hesitation. But that wasn't the truth, it was strategy. Humanity had learned long ago that rushing into danger blindly was a good way to lose. Humans used patience, not weakness, as a tool. They waited, measured, watched, and calculated. And that was exactly what they were doing now, in underground bunkers. Long halls filled with screens glowed in dim light as analysts, engineers, and scientists worked non-stop. Every passing second gave them more information to study. They compared old records, matched energy readings, and ran simulations on attack patterns. They were trying to understand the invaders before a single shot was fired. The invaders interpreted the silence differently. They believed Earth was afraid, inside their enormous flagship. Hidden behind layers of armor and alien metals, their leaders watched human fleets remain motionless. They saw this as weakness. They saw it as surrender. They did not know that stillness was humanity's way of breathing before the strike. Back on Earth, a quiet sense of focus spread across the population. People didn't panic anymore. The fear that had rushed in when the ships first appeared had settled into something stronger: determination. Humanity had always faced challenges by working together, and this moment was no different. On every continent, emergency systems came online smoothly. Medical teams prepared. Supply teams readied equipment. Volunteers helped set up shelters. People comforted each other, shared food, hugged their children, and waited with steady hearts. This wasn't chaos. It was unity. In the middle of all this, something unusual happened. Old projects buried for years under layers of secrecy, were suddenly accessed. Files that hadn't been opened for decades were pulled up again. A quiet alarm sounded deep in the earth, in facilities that most civilians didn't even know existed. One of those facilities had a long hallway filled with machines covered in dust. These were prototypes built for situations no one expected to face. Some were considered too dangerous to deploy. Some were too advanced for their time. Over the years, they had been locked away, forgotten by most. Now, they were powering up again. Engineers who thought their skills would never be needed again found themselves receiving urgent calls. They rushed to these hidden locations, confused and breathless, only to discover that humanity was preparing something far beyond regular defense. These weren't weapons meant for intimidation. These were systems designed to shift entire battles in seconds. On the surface, the world kept watching as the alien fleet slowly began to drift closer. Their formation stayed tight, their weapons glowing with silent energy. They were preparing to launch the first real attack, but Earth still didn't move. Inside one of the central command centers, a senior officer spoke quietly to his team. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't show fear. He simply said that humanity needed more time, and silence was their shield for the moment. They all agreed. The alien fleet misread everything. Confident that Earth was frozen in fear, the invaders sent a message across all frequencies. It wasn't a threat this time. It was a countdown, a warning. 10 minutes to comply. Earth didn't reply. The invaders took the silence as a final acceptance of defeat. But deep inside human command networks, dozens of secret signals were being sent. Codes no civilian had ever heard of. Programs that monitored enemy movement down to fractions of a second. Battle plans that adapted faster than any alien race could imagine Dot in a hidden chamber underground. A group of specialists sat around a circular table filled with screens. One of them pointed to a rising energy pattern on the alien ships. Another confirmed that the invaders were preparing an opening strike of massive scale. Another quietly calculated how much destruction the first volley could cause. The numbers were brutal. Entire cities could vanish. Earth had minutes left to act. Still, human fleets did not fire. They didn't even adjust position. They stayed silent, engines steady, weapons charged, waiting for the exact moment when acting would matter the most. The galaxy, watching from afar, didn't know what to think. Some believed Earth was finished. Others believed humans were planning something impossible. Because humans had always done the impossible. Even the deep space technician, the one who first detected the incoming signals, watched with trembling hands. He had never felt more powerless. He had never felt more certain that something huge was about to happen. The stillness around him felt heavy, almost alive, as if the entire solar system was holding its breath. Finally, the alien countdown reached 1 minute. The enemy fleet rearranged itself into an attack wedge, a formation designed to break through shields and tear apart frontline defenses. Their engines glowed brighter, their weapons humming with rising power. Earth remained silent. 30 seconds. The alien flagship extended massive wings of energy, ready to launch the opening strike. Earth remained silent. 10 seconds. The alien leaders believed victory was assured. And then something changed. Earth's fleet, silent until now, suddenly pulsed with coordinated signals. Not random, not chaotic, perfectly timed. Across every ship, every station, every defense platform, humans activated the one thing the aliens never predicted. A unified system designed to calculate the entire battlefield in real time. It synchronized every human asset across the solar system. In the span of a heartbeat, Earth shifted from stillness to precision. Pilots tightened their grips. Commanders leaned forward. Scientists held their breath. Soldiers prepared for impact. Countdown hit 0. The invaders fired. Beams of blinding energy roared toward Earth's ships, cutting through space with terrifying speed. The attack was massive, overwhelming, designed to break human defenses instantly. But humans had been preparing for this exact moment. In the exact second before the beams hit, Earth's fleet executed a sudden, impossible maneuver, something no alien species had ever tried. Every ship moved at once, bending trajectories with insane precision, slipping through the incoming fire as if they had known the attack pattern before it formed. To the watching galaxy, it looked like humans predicted the future. To the invaders, it looked like their weapons had missed the easiest target in history. Their perfect opening strike had failed. Earth's silence had ended. The storm was about to begin. The moment the enemy's opening strike missed, the entire battlefield changed. The alien fleet expected Earth's ships to burn, shields to collapse, and defenses to crack apart. They believed the first attack would break human lines so completely that resistance would become pointless. But instead of destruction, they saw something that made even their hardened commanders hesitate. The human fleet moved like it had one mind. Not one ship moved late. Not one pilot missed the signal. Not one formation broke. Every vessel shifted at the exact same instant, sliding through space as if guided by instinct rather than orders. It didn't look like military training. It didn't even look like strategy. It looked natural, almost like the ships themselves understood what needed to be done. Inside the human command centers, the reaction was silent but powerful. People stared at the screens, stunned at how precisely everything had worked. The system that had synchronized the fleet hadn't been tested in a real battle before. Many thought it would fail under stress. But in that moment, it worked better than anyone expected. The alien beams tore across empty space, hitting nothing but darkness. Earth had survived the first blow, but the invaders did not pause for long. They adjusted quickly, shifting into a secondary attack pattern. Their ships rearranged into a triangle formation that spread across the moon's horizon like a metal stormfront. Their weapons glowed again, the energy rising, sharp and angry. This time they were aiming to erase the human fleet completely. Human commanders didn't wait for the next countdown. The time for silence was over. Orders were sent instantly. The first human counterattack began. Hundreds of human ships surged forward together, pushing across space in a wave of light. They did not fire blindly. They targeted specific weak points the analysts had discovered in the final seconds before the battle started. Every human vessel moved precisely where it needed to be. The ships were smaller, lighter, and weaker compared to the alien giants. But they were faster and more flexible. Human ships twisted through space like swift birds, weaving between enemy lines, forcing the invaders to adjust their aim. Again and again, the alien fleet finally opened full fire. Huge beams shot outward in every direction. Some flashes were so bright that people on the night side of Earth saw faint flickers in the sky, like distant storms. The moon bases shook under the pressure waves. Even Earth's magnetic field felt the tremors of the battle. One alien blast hit a human ship squarely, sending it spinning. Inside, the crew fought to stabilize it, alarms blaring. They pushed their damaged engines to full power and rejoined the formation. They refused to fall back. Humanity wasn't giving up a single ship without a fight. On other ships, pilots worked with sharp focus. Sweat rolled down their faces. Their hands gripped the controls tightly. They knew the enemy ships were bigger, stronger, and built for domination. But they also knew humanity wasn't fighting alone. Every ship was part of something larger, something unified. Back on Earth, people watching the live feed felt their hearts racing. Some cried out when a ship got hit. Others clenched their fists when a human counterattack landed. Nobody turned away. Nobody looked bored or distracted. The entire planet watched as their defenders fought for everything that mattered. In one command room, a young officer spoke softly, barely above a whisper. He said something that spread quietly among the staff. The invaders had no idea what they stepped into. They thought they were attacking a planet, but they were attacking families, children, hopes, memories. Humans didn't fight for power or glory. They fought because they had something worth protecting, and that made them dangerous. As the battle intensified, the alien fleet tried to crush the human formation with raw force. They fired so much energy that their ships glowed like burning metal. But their beams still struggled to hit the human vessels. Human pilots moved unpredictably. They changed paths at angles no alien ship could match. Their ships twisted, dropped, surged, and turned sharply, as if they broke every rule of space combat. It frustrated the invaders. Their commanders sent new orders, trying to adapt to the humans' strange movements. They couldn't understand how smaller ships could dodge attacks meant to obliterate entire sections of space. They assumed humans had advanced prediction technology, but the truth was simpler. Humans reacted fast. Very fast. Instinct, creativity, improvisation, these were things the alien fleet had never encountered before. Meanwhile, Earth's long-hidden weapons finally activated. Deep underground, devices that had been silent for decades powered up with a heavy hum. These were experimental defense systems humanity had built long ago, but never used. Some of them weren't even fully understood anymore. But desperate moments required daring tools. Energy networks around Earth strengthened. Old satellites reactivated. Shield generators on forgotten orbital stations burst back to life. And then, one by one, hidden artillery platforms in low orbit revealed themselves. The invaders noticed too late. Hundreds of beams, shot upward from Earth's defensive grid. They weren't massive blasts like the alien weapons, but they were accurate. They hit key enemy ships in perfect rhythm, striking joints, engines, sensor arrays, and weapon cores. Sparks erupted across the alien formation as multiple systems malfunctioned. The alien fleet staggered. One of their ships lost control and drifted off position. Another's front plating cracked open. A third spun slowly, its central engine flickering. Humanity had finally landed a real blow dot in human command rooms. People didn't cheer. They couldn't. The battle wasn't even close to finished. But a wave of hope spread across the room. Shoulders straightened. Eyes brightened. People who had been silent for minutes finally breathed again. Far away, the deep space technician who had first heard the alien signals stared at the battle, feed with tears in his eyes. He wasn't crying from fear. He was crying from pride. Humanity wasn't collapsing. Humanity was rising, but the invaders weren't defeated yet. Far from it. Realizing their formation was breaking, the alien fleet switched to a new strategy. Smaller strike ships were released from the sides of their massive carriers. These fast-moving attack crafts swarmed forward, surrounding human ships. Like a wave of metal insects, the human fleet felt the pressure instantly. Human pilots had to move even faster. They dodged lasers, slid between debris, and shot down enemy fighters one by one. But the swarm was growing too quickly. The invaders had numbers on their side. They believed they could overwhelm human defenses with sheer force. Human commanders saw the danger and sent urgent signals to the secret facilities. They needed those hidden systems, whatever they were fully active. Back underground, engineers worked frantically. Sparks shot from machines as they rushed to stabilize the old technology. Some of the devices hummed loudly, others shook the ground. They weren't built for modern systems, but the engineers refused to slow down. They knew the planet depended on them. Above Earth, the battle reached its most dangerous point. Human ships were forced closer together as the alien swarm closed in. The enemy ships fired relentlessly, lighting up space with flashes of destruction. One human destroyer was hit so hard it broke into two. The crew evacuated using escape pods, floating helplessly until rescue ships picked them up. People on Earth gasped, their hearts sinking. Losing even one ship felt personal. But the human fleet refused to collapse. They tightened their formation, sharing shield power, balancing energy, and creating a moving wall of defense. Every pilot pushed themselves to the limit. Every commander gave orders with calm determination. And then, finally, a signal echoed across every human channel. The old systems were ready. Lights across. Human ships flickered as new power surged through their cores. Shields strengthened. Weapons sharpened. Engines grew faster. The alien swarm suddenly found itself facing a fleet that was no longer merely defending, it was evolving. Mid-battle, humanity wasn't just surviving, humanity was adapting, and the invaders were about to learn what that meant. The message that spread across the galaxy after the battle was simple but unforgettable. Earth had survived the largest attack ever launched against it, and not only survived, but turned the invaders back in a way no one expected. After the last enemy ships retreated, the whole planet felt like it was breathing again. People came out of shelters. Screens everywhere switched from emergency warnings to normal broadcasts. For a long moment, the sky turned quiet, as if the world was trying to understand what had just happened. The humans, who had been part of the defense, felt a strange mix of exhaustion and pride. Many of them were still standing at their stations, staring at the fading lights of the enemy ships leaving the solar system. Some whispered to each other in disbelief. Some simply leaned back, closed their eyes, and tried to remind themselves that it was truly over. No one celebrated loudly at first. The victory was too big, too unexpected, too overwhelming to process in a single breath. Up in orbit, the human warships drifted in calm formation. Their engines glowed softly, waiting for new orders. The crew inside the lead ship watched their screens silently. They had expected to fight until the last moment. They never thought they would win so quickly or force the attackers to surrender before the real battle even began. But that was the strange thing about humans. When pushed to the edge, they didn't break. They pushed back harder. Down on Earth, every city began to light up, one by one, as power grids stabilized. People stepped outside their homes and stared at the clear sky. Even though the human ships were invisible from the ground, everyone knew they were there, guarding the planet like silent giants. Families gathered in the streets. Some cried. Some talked excitedly. Some simply looked around, checking if everything was still the same. The world had changed, but it still felt familiar. The galactic observers who had been watching the entire event couldn't believe what they had seen. For ages, many species had believed humans were weak, limited, or too unpredictable to be taken seriously. But when the enemy forces launched their assault, the truth became clear. Humanity wasn't weak. Humanity was dangerous in a way no one had ever understood. They didn't show all their strength. They didn't boast. They simply waited until the right moment and acted with precision. Across distant star systems, broadcasts replayed the battle again and again. Aliens tried to understand how Earth had destroyed ships 10 times bigger and stronger. Some claimed humans had hidden technology. Some believed they had ancient weapons buried deep in the planet's history. Some even whispered that humans had been preparing for something like this for centuries. But the real answer wasn't a secret machine or forgotten relic. The real answer was the humans themselves. Their unity, their adaptability, their instinct to survive, no matter what stood against them. In the days that followed, Earth began to receive messages from all over the galaxy. Some were apologies. Some were diplomatic invitations. Some simply asked how humans had done what they did. And some came from species who admitted they had once ignored humanity, but now wanted to learn from them. The human leaders gathered in a huge meeting room to respond. They didn't brag or demand anything. They only said they would talk peacefully with those who approached peacefully. But another message also arrived, one that was unexpected. It came from the very invaders who had tried to conquer Earth. Their leader, speaking through a cold and distorted signal, sent a short statement. The voice sounded tired, almost stunned. "Your world was supposed to fall easily," the message said. "We did not believe the stories about your strength. We understand now. We will not make this mistake again." Humans didn't send a hostile reply. They simply said, "Do not attack our home. We do not want war." It was a simple answer, but it carried a deep meaning. Anyone who heard it realized Earth didn't want to rule or destroy anyone. They just wanted peace. But they were ready to defend themselves with everything they had. On the streets of Earth, life slowly returned to normal, though nothing felt truly normal anymore. People talked in shops, on buses, and online about what humans had shown the galaxy. Many felt proud, not because they had weapons, but because they had stood together. Others felt relieved that the threat was over. And many understood something important. The galaxy now knew Earth was not a planet to underestimate. Still, humanity did not become arrogant. No monuments were built claiming superiority. No leaders declared domination over space. Instead, people focused on rebuilding, helping communities recover, and checking on their neighbors. Volunteers worked nonstop to restore damaged communication towers. Engineers repaired the defense grid. Students wrote messages of support to those who had been afraid during the attack. If anything, the crisis made humans feel closer to one another. They realized how fast everything could change and how unity mattered more than ever. The memory of the attack didn't create fear. Instead, it created a quiet determination, a feeling that humans would always rise when threatened. In orbit, the commanders reviewed the battle recordings. They analyzed each moment carefully, trying to learn from the fight. But every time they replayed the enemy's retreat, they felt the same chill. The invaders had stopped fighting the moment they realized what humans were truly capable of. It wasn't the weapons alone that scared them. It was the human reaction, the speed, the resolve, the refusal to surrender, even when facing impossible odds. The galaxy interpreted this differently. Some species admired Earth deeply now. Some grew nervous. Others tried to understand how a single planet could resist an entire armada. Scholars debated. Leaders worried. But ordinary beings across different worlds found themselves curious about humans. They searched for stories, history, music, art, anything that explained how Earth had become so resilient. Back on Earth, the skies finally cleared fully. The blue color returned, bright and calm. Children pointed upward and asked their parents if aliens would come again. Some parents said maybe, but next time it might be peaceful. Some said no one would dare, after what happened. Everyone agreed on one thing: no matter what came next, they were ready. In the weeks that followed, Earth sent peaceful messages throughout the galaxy. They shared information about themselves, their culture, and their intentions. They didn't threaten anyone. They didn't brag about their victory. They simply explained that they defended their world because they had no other choice. Just like any species would, this honesty made many alien civilizations rethink their past assumptions. Some decided to open trade routes. Others offered scientific cooperation. A few even asked if humans would help them build defensive systems of their own. Slowly, the galaxy began to shift into a more open and understanding place. But many still whispered quietly. Why did humanity react so fast? Why did they fight with so much focus? What gives them that strength? The answer, once again, wasn't in technology or power. It was in the human spirit, the same spirit that helped them survive countless challenges throughout history. Months later, when the story of the invasion was told across different worlds, it became known as the moment the galaxy realized something important. Attacking Earth had been the greatest mistake in history. Not because Earth destroyed its enemies without mercy, but because humanity showed a strength no one could measure. It was a strength built on unity, courage, and the will to protect home. Even years after the incident, every time new species visited Earth for peaceful discussions, they carried a quiet respect. They saw the humans living their lives, working, laughing, helping each other, creating art and music, and realized these were not warriors craving war. They were people who valued life deeply. And that was exactly why they fought so fiercely when threatened. Every visitor who came to Earth eventually left with the same thought. Humans were not the strongest in the galaxy because of their weapons or machines. They were strong because they never gave up. They adapted. They learned. They stood together when it mattered most. And that was the lesson the galaxy would never forget.